Om Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurme Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Om Ganganapate Namaha Om Ganganapate Namaha Om Ganganapate Namo Namaha Sarva Mangala Mangalle Shive Sarvartha Sadhike Sharanya Trambake Gauri Narayani Namostute Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Mahalakshmi Rupena Samstita Namastase 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 Namo Namaha Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Om Gunatito Ksharam Brahma Bhagavan Purushottamaha Jano Janandidam Satyam Muchyate Bhavabandhanat Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Om Namo Narayanaya Om Namo Narayanaya Om Namo Narayanaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namah Shivaya Om Shri Swaminarayanaya Namah Om Shri Lakshmi Narayanaya Namah Om Shri Narnarayanaya Namah Om Shri Parabrahmane Namah Om Shri Aksharaya Namah Om Shri Krishnaya Namah Om Shri Radha Krishnaya Namah Om Shri Umameshwara Swamine Namah Om Namah Shivaya Om Shri Hanumate Namaha Om Namo Hanumate Bhayabhanjanaya Sukham Kuru Phat Swaha. Welcome to Nnitya Satsang, Daily Satsang. Today is the 8th of January 2022. I would like to offer my Dandavat Pranam to all the great sages, past, present, future, and to the Supreme Parabrahma Paramatma residing everywhere and in the heart of all beings. With that prarthana and bhav, we are continuing our study and exploration of Sri Vivek Chudamani with the intention of evolving further into the spiritual truths, into the spiritual reality. It is an evolution of the mind further and further into the realization of the Atma Tattva and the Paramatma Tattva. So along those lines, we have been examining what is meant by Antakarana, the basic foundational ideas that are needed in connection with our regular life in Vivek Chudamani, the chakras, and so many things are all together. So carefully we're trying to open this up so we can understand it better. We are examining the Antakarana, and in the Antakarana we have been talking about the Ahankar, the Buddhi, Chitta, Mana, all of these different components of the Antakarana. As we stated last time, that the Antakarana is the place where the actual work needs to be done. Our entire spiritual practice or psycho-spiritual practice is in the Antakarana. This is the place where this whole show is being played. And it is a big mystery. It is also very, very deep. You know, the depth of the mind, the depth of the buddhi is unfathomable. We cannot capture its fullness that easily. That is why, as we are trying to evolve further, we are wanting to make sure that there is the proper and the correct understanding about what each of these are, and then what to do with each of them, which is what to do with each of them, how to use each of them, because they are an instrument. It is a karana. Karana means instrument. Instrument meaning it is a tool, actually. It is a tool given, it is an instrument given, it is a sadhan, but it's an internal one. You know, the bahya karana are the eyes, ears, tongue, taste. They're also an instrument, they're a mechanism to bring in the information from the outside. That is Gnan Indriya. Our eyes capture the light from the outside and bring it inside the brain, and then inside the Antakarana, the brain, the mind, it forms the different images. So, the Antakarana is the biggest blockage, or it has within it all kinds of material that it itself is playing around with. It is just living in that world. It is living in the world of the internal mind. So what did the rishis do about this? They were aware of it from ancient times, just as we are today. So they said, let's see if we substitute inside the mind the God-related activities, Brahma Vidya, Brahma Chintan. We put that inside there. So how do we do that? So this is what I mentioned yesterday. From a bhakti point of view, bhakti marg particularly, you can do it, where we put inside the mind the images of the avatars, the incarnations of God, the different mantras we put inside the mind, the different religious paraphernalia, plus the temples, the glory of the mandirs and temples, and religious-centered objects, activities, sounds, etc. If it is connected with divinity that has been revealed through the Rishi Parampara, we can actually color the Antakarana deliberately with the images, sounds, with the scriptural ideas, and allow the mind to stay there. It's possible. In our regular life, when we have students who are studying for an exam, for example, right? What do? They have to use all four of these, ahankara, buddhi, manas, chitta, and get absorbed in the subject. If they want to get an A, they want to get a really good grade, they have to know the material so thoroughly, so the buddhi, the manas, the chitta, it all functions to absorb like a sponge the material that is being studied. Then they have to think about it, cross-connect it, understand it. They're living in that world. Somebody's taking chemistry, like honors chemistry in high school, for example, right? They're studying the textbook, then they're doing the lab work, then they're listening to the teacher, the notes. They're doing all of that. So their antakarana is getting infused with that information. They're thinking about it. They're experimenting with it. They are trying to understand it. They're questioning it. Then that knowledge of what is chemistry, it will eventually bubble up and it will be, oh, I see this connection. I see this. And the more they see it, the more they understand it. Then if they are going to take an exam, they will ace the exam. Because it is an internal understanding that has come from the external contact. This is true with all of the subjects. Now, you will also notice further, if somebody's studying chemistry, they can study physics also. And then eventually there's a connection between physics and chemistry. There's a connection between chemistry and biology. There's a connection with mathematics and all these subjects. Then as the time goes on, that student sees all of these connections. Oh, wow. Isn't this true? This is true. We have gone through that ourselves. And this is true in so many areas of life. In every area of life, actually. Even if, let's say, somebody's in a family, we are involved with our family members. We get to know them pretty well. We get to see each other's lives and all that. What is all of that? The antakarana is involved in that. All the images are stored inside the mind. Mind is very powerful. The same thing is true with nature. We go to natural places. We go for touring, for travel. We go to different centers, museums, wherever. All those things are recorded inside the chitta. Inside this chitta, there is a massive amount of constant recording. It is the recording capacity of the brain in the synapses. And then the chitta is actually even subtler than the synapses of the brain. It is a sukshma sharira. It is subtler than that because it is recording so much that we don't even know. And it has all of the storehouse of millions of lifetimes. It has all of that recorded, but it is not in our awareness, all that. Unless you go to some special dhyan, then you can get access to that. So it also is not necessary to get access to that as such. Although people talk about things like past life regression therapy, that's a different matter. That's a therapeutic approach to try to dive into some of those things. But it's good that we don't remember those things too much because we have to live our life here. We have to live our life here and progress further and evolve into the Atma. The goal here is to realize the Atma. Actually, it is to realize the Paramatma. But the Atma is that also has to be realized. So the Atma Tattva itself is completely separate from this Antakarana. We are not the physical body. We are not the five senses and the five indriyas and the panch gnan indriya, panch karma indriya. We are not this Antakarana. But somehow the me, the sense of me that is inside this ahankar has gotten solidified that the jiva, that the Atma Tattva feels that I am this antakarana. Well, wait a minute. If I'm not this antakarana, then what am I? And how am I supposed to realize this thing? Okay. Now, when we ask those kinds of questions about the ahankar, about the ego, etc., we have to probe a bit further into something called Avastha Treya. Okay, so now we're going to start talking about this, and I'll connect it with the antakarana slide so we understand what we are talking about. See, we are going through every single day in the 24-hour cycle what is called Avastha Treya. Avastha Treya is Jagrat Avastha, Swapna Avastha, Shushupti Avastha. And that these three are connected with the three gunas of Maya and the three bodies. So Jagrat Avastha is connected with the waking state, Swapna Avastha is the dream state, Shushupti Avastha is the deep sleep state. And the Antakarana is active in the Jagrat and Sushupti, in the waking state and dream state, Antakarana, and in the Swapna Avastha particularly, it is active. It is super active in the Swapna Avastha, but it's super active in the Jagrat also. We cannot even have Jagrat Avastha unless the brain and the Antakarana is active. But notice the word Avastha. Avastha means state of experience. Whose experience is it? Atma. That is called consciousness. That is Turiya. So in Vedanta, they use the word Turiya. Turiya is the fourth state. It's not a state. It is beyond the three. Turiya means the fourth. We cannot say it's a state. Sometimes we say fourth state, but it's not really a state. It is beyond the three states. Now, these three states, this Jagrat Avastha, which is Vishwa, meaning we experience this outside world. Swapna, that is Tejasa, we experience the inner world, the dream world. And Shushupti is Pragna, meaning we are experiencing deep sleep. Here the word Pragna doesn't mean intelligence and buddhi. It doesn't mean that. There's another meaning actually here. So the experiencer is basically imprisoned. It is in the prison of these three states. This is a very profound subject. These three states, the Atma is moving through those. The Atma is given the experience of Jagrat world, Jagrat Vishwa. And the Atma doesn't move anywhere. There's no moving and coming and going or anything like that for the Atma. The Atma is a witness to everything, including the witness to all the chakras and all that too. It seems like the Atma is going somewhere. We haven't experienced we're going from point A to point B to point C in this world. In reality, from the Atma Tattva, that's not what's happening. If like Sachin is sitting here in Newark, Delaware right now, I get up from this seat and go to the other room, or get up from this seat and go outside to my car. From the Atma's Tattva point of view, that's not what has happened. What has actually happened is that the entire cosmos and this body and the senses and everything is revolving around the Atma and changing the experience, making the Atma Tattva as the Jiva think that it is going from one place to another. It's not going anywhere. There's no going or coming or any such thing. This is called Vitirek Swarup of Atma. Atma ka Vitirek Swarup. Vitirek Swarup means that the Atma is Satchidanand Brahma Tattva. It is Achal. Achal means unmoving. It doesn't go anywhere. There's no going or coming of the Atma. The Atma, the only thing that can evolve out of the Atma, or how can we say, once the Atma is freed from the clutches of Maya, which are these three states, the Atma and the Brahman are one. Where's the coming and going of Brahman? Brahman is not coming or going, it's just existence. The Nirakara Brahma is just everywhere. And within that, millions of universes come and go, come and go. Once you are de-identified with Maya completely, where is there coming and going? There, in an Advaita Vedanta, the Atma and the Brahma Tattva are one. There's no you even left to experience anything. You are just merged inside you are the one with the Brahman, that's all. Now, in the Vaishnava literature, in the Bhakti traditions, yes, even Maharaj has mentioned many times, yes, you are one with the Brahman, but you are a devotee of Parabrahman, and that Atma Tattva gets a Vigraha called Satchidananda Brahma. Even that doesn't come and go, really. There are experiences available with God in the different abodes of God. So, wo ek thoda Dvaita Bhav little bit is there in that. Definitely, Dvaita Bhav is there, dualistic Bhav. But it's not the kind of coming and going inside Prakriti. This might sound very strange, actually, to think about it this way. When a baby is born, the Atma is not born. Atma is ajanma. If you look at the Bhagavad Gita, Atma is described as uncuttable, unpierceable, it is unborn, it is sanatana, jiva bhuta sanatana. So, Atma is not born. The Atma is experiencing the physical body because of its attachment inside the Maya. Inside the womb of the mother, the body is formed, and then the senses are given, and everything is given for the Atma to experience the Jagrat world. And that's true with all the other species also, in their own different bodies. The experiencer is the Atma Tattva in all, whether it is a frog or a tree or a human being or elephant or anybody. The experiencer is the Atma Tattva. That is what Shankaracharya Ji is teaching us in Vivek Chudamani about how to realize this. If we realize the Atma, while we're living in this body, while we are alive here inside this body, wow, we are totally free. It doesn't mean we stop experiencing Jagrat Avastha. We just recognize it as relatively real and in fact as non-existing. It's there, but it's not there. So the Jagrat Avastha is not binding anymore. In fact, the Jiva is not the Jiva is the Shiva. The Avastha is there. Yes, we still see the mountains and trees and people and everything we see. But when we are in the Atmic consciousness, we are not reacting at all to the world outside, to the Vishwa outside. There's zero reaction to the Vishwa outside. In Vedras, Bhagavan Swaminarayan, he mentioned this so fantastically. He used an expression called Jagratma Shushupti Jevu Varte in Gujarati. So in this Jagrat Avastha, when you are awakened completely, you still see everything. Experiences are there, but the experiences are as if you are in Shushupti Avastha. Because in Shushupti Avastha, there is no experience. When we are in deep sleep, and the EEG has shown this, electroencephalograph, when we go into deep sleep, there's no anubhav of any kind, there's no experience. And that is a rest for the mind. That's why that Shushupti is there. Because the mind is so overrun by the Jagrat and Swapna Avastha. And particularly if you go into the sleep research, which I have had the opportunity to study to some extent. And if you go into a sleep medicine, I actually have a book that I showed. I think maybe we have talked about that before. But I have like a 2,000 or 3,000 page book on sleep medicine. And there's thousands of materials developed on this. There's so much damage that is done inside the sleep state for the most of human beings. It is like a hallucination. It is a hallucination. This Swapna Avastha is a REM hallucination. It's like somebody's having a hallucination inside, while we're awake. That is a psychiatric disorder. But at nighttime, everybody's going through a REM hallucination, rapid eye movement. That is why the yogis, they realized all this. They said, wait a minute, our brain, our mind is so super active inside this swapna avastha and is using tremendous amount of energy to create the experiences and whatnot, because it is sinking inside that swapna avastha. It sinks from the Agnya chakra to the lower chakras from a kundalini point of view. And that whole swapna avastha comes. In fact, they say it is in the kantha. It is in the Vishuddhi chakra, because it is still underneath Maya. That is where that swapna avastha predominates. And much of the research in medical science would say you have to dream. Well, of course you have to dream, because we have created so much chaos. That's why we dream. We dream because there's so much disturbance created in the waking state. The brain has to process that somehow. Think about it this way. If we live even one day in the waking state with zero disturbance, theoretical, let's say, at least for now, zero rag, dvesh, aham, mamatva, chinta, worry, tension, none of that is there. Proper balance with the physical body, 100% balance is there, exactly the way it should be. No energy damage at all. What do you think will happen in the swapna avastha? This is the kind of question, in fact, this question was asked by the rishis from the Upanishadic times, and it's been asked throughout by all mumukshus. When we ask this question, which we can do through the buddhi, because we have buddhi, we can ask this question through the buddhi tattva. Then we can start to actually experiment to change our interactional experience in Jagrata Avastha. We can change it, absolutely. Yes, the recording is going to go on. Yes, the experiences are going to go on, but they are experiences that are occurring without the me getting ensnared and involved with those experiences. It's there. It's coming and going. I mentioned it yesterday. Nnitya, Anitya, Vastu, Viveka. Well, that Viveka is in the Jagrata Avastha. In fact, the whole Avastha, the entire Avastha while one is awake, it is like a dream. It is dream-like. So when we are doing sadhana, we are putting inside the mind, in the Jagrata Avastha, adhyatmic experience, spiritual, how can we say, God-centered, God-related material. We're putting that inside the antakarana. For example, let's say you have a devotee, a bhakta, who has memorized 5,000 bhajan kirtan. I have known people like this, by the way. I know them. Their devotion is so high, but they memorize bhajan kirtan. Bahut sab pad hai. That's why this is another reason why the great sages, they've written so much. Even like Tulsi Ramayana. Tulsi Das ji ka jo Ramcharitmanas, there are people in India today and in other places that have memorized the Tulsi Ramayana. And that's why Tulsi Das ji wrote it so that it can be memorized. There are people who have memorized the whole Gita. So when we put inside the antakarana, in the Jagrata Avastha, the content that is centered around divinity, that is centered around God-related content, it is going to change the color of the antakarana. I hope that point is clear. See if I can figure this thing out here. I'm trying to go to these slides back and forth. Yes, it changes the experience of the antakarana. It is not something that is outside the antakarana. So for example, if you have a bhakta, a devotee who has memorized thousands of bhajans, is absorbed in mantras of different kinds, as we mentioned last time, right? Ishta Devata ka mantra and all that, those things we mentioned before. Sri Krishna Sharanam Mama, there's a murti there is a Papuja Archana, then there's study of Bhagavatam, and there's a study of so many things. The Antakarana is infused by Satsanga. See the word Sangha. Sat plus Sang. Sat plus Sang is Satsang. Sat means that which is actually real, that which is true, that which is existing always. Now, this is the interesting part. Take Bhajan Kirtan, for example. You take Bhajan Kirtan plus the Bhagavad Gita, for example, just as an example. These mantras or these shlokas in the Gita plus the bhajans that are written, they are written in Jagrat Avastha, in the world of the relative world. They are also part of the relative world. Is it not so? When we look at the book of the Gita, is it not part of the relative world? Of course it is. But it is something special other than simply what is the content in the relative world. It is an expression in words or in mantra or in bhajan kirtan. It is an expression of divya anubhuti, divine realization outside the avastatraya by the rishis or devotees, and it is an expression of divinity, divyata, in the relative world of that which is non-relative. That which is non-relative, Atma Tattva, Brahma Tattva, it is expressed by the rishis, like, excuse me, it is expressed by, let's say, by Ved Vyas, who wrote the Bhagavad Gita in the Jagrat Avastha. But it is an expression in the Jagrat Avastha of that which is non-relative and beyond language. But so that expression in the relative world, in the Jagrat Avastha, is a doorway. Those who are in the relative world can study it and bring it inside the Antakarana. And the more Manan Chintan Nididhyasan that occurs of Satsanga, of the scriptures and of the God-centered activity, to that extent, that crack opens into Turiya. So Turiya Avastha is an opening into the actual reality. There's no Bhagavad Gita there. There's no murtis or anything like that over there. That is all in the relative world. So that's why what happens when the Atma begins to open, when the realization of the Atma occurs, the entire world disappears. All the scriptures disappear. Everything disappears. The Tattva is there, actually. And so this is why in Advaita, there are so many, even bhajans of this type, padas of this type, that there is no guru, there is no shishya, there is no darkness, there is no light, there is no moksha, there is no bandhan. Chidananda Rupam Shivoham Shivam. You know that there's that very beautiful series of verses. It's attributed to Adi Jagadguru Shankaracharya ji, but it was his disciple who has written that one. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Wo kya hai? That is a state of realization of the Atma. Because once the Atma is realized, then because we're alive, then bhajan, kirtan, manan, chintan, scriptures, ye sab kya hai? It is just a play in the Jagrat world. But it is good. It is like a ladder. It is helpful for everybody who is within the realm of Maya. But for the Jivan Mukta, those things are actually a nuisance. Ye sab shastra bistra sab nuisance. And I'm hesitant to say that. I don't want to say that really, but since we're trying to express the truth as it is, that is a fact. Many sages, even in this current world, I have heard very big sages. I won't give the names. I don't want there to be misunderstanding. बहुत बड़े संत जब आज है, living today, I have heard them say, ये सब शास्त्र जो है ना, it is a nuisance. It's a shocking statement. Like, what are you talking about? It is a nuisance in the sense that if we are playing around only intellectually with the scriptures and not really internalizing their bhav and going through Nidhi Dhyasan and realizing the truth behind the scriptures, it is a nuisance only. It is just another game of Maya. I'll give you an example. Sachin is hungry, let's say, is really, really hungry, has lots of raw ingredients at home. I've talked about this before. I have, let's say, 100 fantastic cookbooks. Fantastic cookbooks. And I keep reading them, and I keep thinking about, I make these recordings, how to make an apple pie, a blueberry pie, a pecan pie, this pie, that pie, strudels and different desserts and nice dishes, vegetable biryanis and different spices. I know everything about that. I'm hungry myself. I know, but I'm so interested in these cookbooks. I keep reading them and thinking about them and making these kinds of recordings. I have all the ingredients also. But I have not taken any steps, not even opened the refrigerator to take out even one tomato. Is my hunger going to be satisfied that way? This is the problem in, quote, the spiritual world. We love to listen to all these things. Everybody does. It's nice, It's nice to listen to what the dishes are. People watch those cooking shows, right? But that is not enough. That is good. But there is a whole different process on top of that, where that information that is in the cookbooks actually cook something. Actually do it. Then you'll find out what it is. Then put it in your mouth, then chew it, then swallow it and digest it. That is why scriptures and all of these ideas, there are thousands of such ideas, endless amount. Itna likha hai that our mind there's no end. It is not the quantity. It is the quality and how much is actually cooked. You might have 100 cookbooks. Make one dish. Make one dish that you like and then make it well and put it in your mouth and eat it. That will satisfy your hunger. You don't need to have 100 cookbooks and make every single dish. You'll not be able to do it also. Similarly, the scriptures, the Shastra, are the expression in the Jagrat Avastha of the rishis, of the sages, based on their anubhav as a krupa to build a doorway back into the Atma and Paramatma. Scriptures are a means to an end. Gurus are a means to an end. This body is a means to an end. The Antakarana is a means to an end. The whole Jagat, Vishwa, is a means to an end. It is not an end in itself. Ved Vyas Ji has written this now. I'll give you a shloka. I may have mentioned this before. उन्होंने बहुत एक अद्भुत बात लिखी है. आलोड्य सर्वशास्त्राणि विचार्य च पुनः पुनः इदमेकं सुनिष्पन्नं ध्येयो नारायणो हरिः. Vedvyas Ji says, I have churned the ocean of scriptures. Alodhan means churning. You know, like how you churn the milk like this, right? When you churn, you find the essence. Alodya sarva shastrani vicharya cha punah punah. Again and again and again. I have gone through it all. And there's only one truth that comes out. Bhagwan ka sakshatkar karna. Dheyo narayano harihi. Bhagwan Paramatma, the one without a second. Parabrahma Paramatma. Wo dheya hai. That is the goal. That is a destination. Otherwise, one will be lost inside Mahamaya. The point is, we have an opportunity in the human body, with this mind, with this good intellect, with everything functioning well. We have an opportunity to live in the Jagrat Avastha with absolute harmony. That harmony in the Jagrat Avastha, which is your own harmony, it is your own freedom, Sthita Pragnata, as per the Gita, that allows us to take this journey into the Antakarana and put inside the Antakarana content that is going to allow the Manana Chintana to go on of that spiritual content. And when we do that, then the Antakarana begins to, it begins to purify, but it also resonates with the Atma. Because the Atma, see the Atma and its power is expressed as a bridge by Ved mantra, by Vedanta mantras, by the Sanatana Dharma scriptures and ideas. That is why they're called Darshan Shastra. They're not just intellectual stuff. It is a darshan because if you study Vivek Chudamani, go into Vivek Chudamani, study the Gita, study Vachanamrutam, etc., that is spoken from the enlightened state in the Jagrat Avastha. So those words create the bridge through sadhanas that are shown where the Antakarana begins to develop a bridge, a friendship with the Atma. In Vachanamrut, Garuda Ante number 9, Shriji Maharaj said, Jeev ane manni mitrata che, that they are friends, that the Antakarana and the Atma are friends, that they are together. These are some tremendous ideas. There's so much to be said about this. We are already, I think, at 8:57. So we will stop here for now. I want to try to keep to time. And then we'll do the Mantra Pushpanjali now. Please give all of this some thought. I will be placing this recording in our WhatsApp group. So if you want to reflect on that further, if anybody has any specific questions or comments, please reflect on this. That's Hamari Ek Prarthana. I will be doing that same thing. And we can certainly share with each other different ideas, different thoughts on that basis.